Hello there, ladies, gentlemen, and unicorns. Wow, I'm so sorry. I don't know for how long the countdown has already finished, but yeah, I still had to get myself some milky goodness today. That is coffee.
A damn
and
coffee.
Thank you. I also, as you can see, I've got myself a little bit of fun. That is a Stream Deck. Let me quickly hold it into the camera. That is this thing here, which with which I can control pretty much anything that is going on here. And yeah, the last couple of days I just prepared some clips that I may or may not be playing again, just to have some fun on the stream. And let's have a look at the chat. He's alive. Yes, I am. Again, really sorry for yeah, completely running out of time with the countdown. Again, steaming the milk was a bit took a little too long, and I completely forgot about the countdown. So I hope I didn't have I didn't kept you waiting for too long. Again, it's so much appreciated that you sacrifice the last Sunday before Christmas to this stream, which I call the nightmare before Christmas. Though it's not going to be bad. Let me just have a sip of coffee to make sure that it's good. And Cursibu is also here, and that guy's mustache was starting to get to me. I have no idea which guy and which mustache. This one here, it's or maybe on one on Ashley or one of my unicorns. Either way, yeah, again, yeah, thank you so much for dropping by. What's in for us today? I thought it might be interesting to see me take screenshots because as some of you might know, I'm a trained photographer. No, really, I had many years back I had a training as a photographer, so this is why I've been taking photos and making videos and so on. The good thing is nowadays, in the wonderful times of high definition rendering and ray tracing and so on and so forth, it's a lot of fun to take photographs in games. I already did some I mean, I've been taking screenshots pretty much ever since I was into gaming, but there's some artistic considerations to be held nowadays because, again, the assets look so good and everything. So this is why I really started with Fallout 4. It was, yes, the last one was Fallout 4, with which I really started digging into in-game photography, as I like to call it, where it's not so much you run around and hit a key and to take a screenshot, but it's also about the composition of the image. And yeah, like I said, it's a photo safari. It's hunting for photographs. And with the latest a game that came out with amazing graphics, that is Cyberpunk 2077, that is. I had to make sure that I'm saying, I always want to say Cyberpunk 2020 because it's so horrible this year. Anyway, yeah, I thought together we just stroll around the night city in the game where we take some digital photographs and then later on we'll edit them in Photoshop or raw Therapee. That's an open source tool to essentially develop raw photographs, but you can also use it to develop screenshots. But I'm getting already ahead of myself. I just need to warm up myself on coffee. Yeah, it's cold here. It's not as cold as the years before. Thank you, global warming. Cheers to global warming. But still, yeah, it's kind of cold. We've turned up the heating, but yeah, for some reason, this is why I got a hot water bottle down at my feet. So I hope you all can also get very comfortable and cozy for us to start looking at digital photography. Frank says the old-timey computer show was showing a guy with a mustache demonstrating an Apple Lisa. All right, yes, I'm. If you're watching this on a VOD, yes, on my Twitch stream, I'm hosting the old-timey computer show on my channel, which is just wonderful to watch at because I think the most fun about watching the old-timey computer show is hindsight, that we have the perspective of 2020 when looking at things from 1986 or something. So your stream countdown saved me from when it started. Thank you, Frank. This is what the countdown is for, to save people from horrible 1980s mustaches, at least if I can help it. Okay, let me try and switch over. Yes, it works. My god, I enjoy this bloody Stream Deck quite a lot. Okay, so there we are. Can you see my mouse pointer? Yes, yes you can. So then it is time for us to have a look into the Cyberpunk 2077 game. I won't be playing any missions or quests or anything. Again, it's just going around taking photographs. I think this is the most interesting, especially with open world games where you can just roam around and essentially line up the shots as you would like it, or you would like them. Do we have audio? Is the audio too loud? Is it too quiet? I mean, for me it's okay. Maybe if I turn it down a little bit. Stream Cyberpunk to your friends, says Discord. This is nice, but I'm already streaming it to my friends. Thank you so much. So, yeah, let's continue with where I am. Spoiler alert, I'm not really far into the game because most of my time I spent with essentially just taking photos. Sounds good so far. Opinions of the game thus far. Again, it looks amazing. I think this was the biggest draw for me to Cyberpunk 2077 was that it looks amazing. It might not be the hottest graphics there are, but what is there is pretty solid in terms of presentation, and they absolutely nailed the look and the feel of the different city quarters. No, it's not called districts in the city. So right now it is night, as you can see, so I think this is quite a good time for us to head outside and take some photos then. The audio is probably okay, hard to say with this sort of game where things can happen. Yeah, probably. I mean, if it's okay right now, then it might be a bit too loud. Because I hope there won't be any shooting happening, because I'm not looking into doing some kind of action photography. Just you know, just strolling around and seeing what we can find to take pictures of. Again, I prefer the night time. The lighting in this game is exceptionally good. I'm just wondering, is it too jagged there on the stream? Or at least not too choppy, because from what I can see, you're probably not getting the, what do I have here, 45 FPS that I'm getting. You're not looking for that sort of shooting. Exactly, thank you, Frank. I'm looking for shooting where nobody gets hurt and people don't realize that they got shot by a camera. You know what, while we're here in the elevator, I will try to switch the video source in OBS from the entire screen just to a certain window. Let me see if I can get this done. Game capture, there we go. Capture any full screen, capture specific window, and the window is called Cyberpunk. Okay, let's see if I can really get this done. No, I cannot talk. I cannot talk. I'm doing a stream right now. Ah, wonderful. Okay, so the game is now spoiling you. Well, I hope not that much. So, screen, disable, screen, enable, game. I'm almost done, almost done, just need to line up there the window, screen plus cam. So should look pretty much like the same thing. So okay, I want to escape now. Yeah, why the mystery?
Well,
again, I really don't want to play any of the story right now, but the game is relentless because it always, people always call you and try to shove in some exposition or story or plot line and so on and so forth. So, my god, doesn't this look amazing? Doesn't this look amazing? I want to call my car, but I don't have a vehicle right now in the game. So, but I think this is, my god, fine.
Fine. Where's the meet and when?
I'm completely ignoring this, what he's saying right now.
I am sending you the precise location.
Yeah, it would be nice if you could send me a vehicle or something. as far as I know, this is not GTA, so you can't just steal cars. Well, maybe I can. Can I try it? No. I can't take control of a car because I've leveled incorrectly. Yeah, and I also got a new message. Beautiful. So, I'm asking you, should we just roam around the city looking for a vehicle, like an abandoned car, or just go around on foot and see what we can find? I mean, so far I already like the architecture there, and what I also like is the different, like I said before, the different districts, because each district got a different feel to it. There is one that looks like Los Angeles, another one that looks like Tokyo. From what I've seen, it's very well done. So okay, what are we on the lookout for? Essentially, Burrito XXL. Probably not that. You'd think they have a proper voicemail in 2077, so you could ignore it, says Frank. And yes, absolutely. I mean, what I find funny about this kind of game is, oh, look at this, there might be a nice photo coming up here. Maybe like this. So whenever I hit N, the game switches over into a photo mode. Yeah, what I find funny about this game is that there is so many anachronisms there. I mean, everyone is using their phone like we do nowadays. You probably see a lot of technology from like 50 years ago being used as it was used 50 years ago, especially communications technology. So pretty much it would be like everyone would be still calling on a landline or sending faxes. And the other thing is, you can see what's lying there on the ground. Let me zoom in. Yes, this is a piece of newspaper. It's interesting. Newsprint is still not dead in 2077. So yeah, I'm calling BS on that one. Cursibu says, walking isn't smooth on stream, seems to fluctuate. Probably, yeah. Like I said, I'm streaming and running this one at maximum ultra, except for ray tracing. So just to be able to make nice photos, because I since this is not a gameplay stream, so to speak, but more in terms concerned in taking nice photographs, I think it should be okay. Because as you can see, most of it is pretty much, yeah, still. Okay, so when we switch over in the photo mode, we get a couple of options there. And I'm using none of those because, like I said, I want to line up my shots essentially completely individually. There are some presets. For example, we get here preset 1 and 2 and yet more or less different angles, just in case you're not quite sure what you want, or not really that versed with taking photos, and you want just something that looks okay or looks nice no matter where you are. And these are the presets that are pretty good for that purpose. And the camera type, you can switch between drone and first-person perspective. So in first-person perspective, you can move the camera around a little bit, but not too much. But sometimes this is when you're already looking at something that looks photo-worthy. I used tab now to disable the UI to be able to judge the composition better. Yeah, most of the time it works, but yeah, for me, I always go for the drone, or most of the time I go for the drone. So with my right mouse button, I can just orbit around my player character. And the other thing that I do is you can pose, of course, your player character with wonderful, cool, different poses and expressions there. Like this, but yeah, as for me, those look too posed to me. It's for me, it's more like going around and taking pictures of something different than my character. So this is why I switch my character off. Karen 7 her says Grüße an die Frau, which means greetings to the wife, and I will pass them on. Okay, so. Switched off my character model, so now I can turn and orbit around. But yeah, I want to get a shot of this architecture here, because I like this very much here with the dropship, and I can use WASD to position, to move around a little bit in the space, and by holding the left mouse button, I can just drag the mouse around, which is very helpful, especially if you want to have something there in the distance lined up. But everything is completely out of focus. This is, of course, the depth of field. which is on by default. I also switch off the autofocus because it focuses on the thing that you're orbiting around, which is the player character, which I have turned off. So yeah, it doesn't help using the focus distance here now. Okay, I switch off now depth of field for now, just to be able to see what I want to take pictures of. And the other thing that I always find that helps me in making things look nice is the field of view. I'm going into more of a tele lens like this. So for example, what I like, yeah, as you can see, I'm moving still around, and the camera itself turns in a way that I don't like, because again, you only have a certain radius around which you can it's like a zone, a circular, a spherical zone in which you can position the camera. And there are even the collisions still turned on. Yes, this means also the collisions turned on for your player character that you have switched off in terms of visibility. So sometimes if you can't move the camera, this is why, and it's utterly annoying. For example, here I want to see the top of the building there, but yeah, so is this a nice shot? Is this a nice framing? I like how this dropship there, or whatever this DTNR thing is cut off, but yeah, it's probably not the best thing to take photos of. Incan Imbula says, hey, I was in Night City minding my own business, received that a stream notification came here, and what do I see? Pretty much the same thing, just boring, probably. Yeah, I'm just going around taking nice photos. Okay, and one thing is, because I want to be able to do the post-processing on those photos, I want to have as much information as possible, and this is why I head over to Effect, and you can see here exposure, contrast, highlights, vignette, pretty much everything is set at 0. I also turned down the chromatic aberration quite a bit. For those who don't know what chromatic aberration is, I made a beautiful video on YouTube. Just Google what is chromatic aberration. But if I turn it all the way up, you can see what's happening there on the edges. It's getting pretty smudgy, and I don't like this. I mean, you can, since it's a post-processing effect, you can always do it in post. But if you don't like it, you can't undo it in post. So this is why I have it very subtly at like -50 or something. The other thing is, like I said, I want to do some editing later on, also in terms of exposure and contrast. And usually the exposure here is set at 0, and I always set it like at a -100. The reason for this is, otherwise, if it's 100, pretty much the brightness of this bright light and the sky here is pretty much, well, not quite the same, but almost the same. But there's quite a dynamic range difference between the brightness of this light and the sky. And yeah, I toyed around quite a bit, and the best settings for me is just turning down the exposure to 100, and then in Photoshop or whatever other tool that I want, I just to increase it again, just to keep this high dynamic range essentially in the image. So when I want to take a picture, I just hit the space bar, and again it did something there with the exposure. Maybe this is probably too dark, but we will see. So I just take something like we had before. Commander Stitch says, what does the DTNR ship do? Why does it have thin lights beaming out of the bottom? Are those searchlights? I have no idea. The answer is, as always, Cyberpunk. Because it looks good. I think this is the purpose. Maybe there's a bigger purpose in the story, but like I said, I'm still very much at the beginning because I've been just running around looking at everything. Ink and Imbala says, I spent like 3 to 4 hours taking photos in Night City. Some goons even tried to take away my DSLR. Yeah, there are some districts where you shouldn't bring your camera, I've been told. So far, I still have mine, but yeah, just be on the lookout and don't go to Pacifica, even though it sounds really nice in Pacifica. Okay, so this was my first photo here, and I'm not quite sure that it looks that good now, but at least that we have something that we can work with. Should we take a picture of some cars, maybe?
Gun owners are reminded that the use of
Again,
firearms
I would enjoy it very much if I could ride around in a car, but again, I'm not that powerful in the game. Maybe we can make some pictures, take some portrait pictures of some NPCs, so that we have pretty much a variety of shots. For example, like I said, we get some architecture, maybe some urban. I mean, this looks kind of interesting there. not too interesting, but yeah, maybe not. Yeah, that we have a variety of maybe NPCs and portrait photography, some urban photography, some candid street photography, and of course vehicles. Oh, you know what? Finally, there's a car there. And there are some racketeers there, but I think I can get away with stealing. Yes, I can steal that car. Beautiful. So at least we don't have to go around on foot anymore. Commander Stitch says, I'm feeling some city center Las Vegas vibes. Yeah, again, it's amazing the variety of different cities. Let's have a look at the map here. A variety of different cities. I mean, this entire thing here, especially if we go like on this coastal highway there. Let's follow the white line. It looks a lot like LA. I've never been to LA, but I've played a lot of video games. And GTA 5, I mean, it's like Los Angeles, right? So while we drive around this cityscape here, again, I'm looking for nice. I mean, there are some nice. Again, oh my god, I got like 2 FPS right now. The mouse is not even responding to what I have here. So yeah, the performance is utter crap. But I like it here that while we're driving that there is so much lighting going on there. The problem is now that I'm driving, I can't turn off the car should I want to. So yeah, let's just continue. Whoa, okay. My driving is not the best. Stream is suffering too, says Frank. Yeah, it's not just the stream, it's really... This game is quite demanding in terms of performance. I'm not playing at 4K. Good God, I'm not playing at 4K. So that I could turn up the settings for full HD, that it looks nice there. But again, yeah, it's probably not something for the stream. You're probably seeing a slideshow here. But yeah, if we look at this, to me, at least on daytime, this looked a lot like Los Angeles. But you know what? Let's cross the bridge and see if we can get to Little Japan there. In the Kabuki district, aptly named, I would say. Less than 1 FPS. Yeah, things are not better here where I am. But oh, Japantown. This also makes no. Oh my god, I can't. I really can't do anything about those callers.
Loud and clear.
What crappy prick am I to pick up pretty much to anyone that's calling me? But again.
That'd make sense.
Yeah. Okay, so you know what? I will get off here. No, this was not what I wanted. I will just get off here. Yeah, sure thing. Don't shoot for fun.
Don't shoot for fun.
I can respect that, mate.
Yeah, get off. Get off. Good. My god, yeah, the performance is horrible right now. But look at this beautiful statue here. So, or maybe something there. It's really funny because I thought there would be more to take pictures of, but right now I'm not seeing much. Apart from this incredibly horrible stuttering there of the frame rate. I'm really sorry. I mean, if it's a cold comfort to you, things aren't much better when I'm playing without recording. So we're looking at this series of screenshots, says Frank, how fitting, and it is. Okay, so what I am on the lookout for are nice color contrasts. And this red lampoony thing there with this neon green blue thing there. Look at this, there might be something that we can take pictures of.
Gun owners are reminded that the use of firearms to advance through traffic is prohibited by the law.
Yes, I like the color contrast there. So maybe we can do something there with this big arrow pointing down. I like those lanterns or lampoons. Is it lampoons? Okay, there might be something in terms of composition wise. I'm not quite sure, but you know what? Let's just see and try. So again, I you can also save and load certain configurations, and I saved here my player character turned off, and pretty much everything is on, well, not on automatic, it's on manual. That's the word I was looking for. Excuse me. So okay, so what is something that is nice to take pictures of? Let's turn off depth of field for now. Those NPCs, I would say. Those NPCs, just looking at this pixely mess there, maybe. Yeah, right now I'm just looking through my viewfinder, trying to find things, maybe on this side here. Yeah, I'm still not convinced. Hi there. It's me, your good friend Hindsight Phil. So as you can clearly see, at this very instant the stream just crapped out because my GPU couldn't keep up rendering the game and also encoding the stream. So I'm partly to blame for this, but I also blame Cyberpunk, because in this very section of the game of Night City, even without streaming, even with ray tracing disabled, I still have problems maintaining a frame rate that's above single digits. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, the photos that you see here, the screenshots that I took while trying, completely oblivious that my stream was this bad for everyone. Yeah, those are the results of the photos that I took, and then I restarted the stream again, and this is where we will continue from here. So just that you know what was happening in between. You didn't miss a thing, just me taking these pictures. Corns, I'm so sorry that I tried to stream Cyberpunk to everyone. So, oh, look at this. I can see myself with just a couple of seconds removed from you. I think we're again in sync. This is beautiful. Let's have some coffee. My God. My God. So no, the stream is not over. Apparently, when I was trying to stream Cyberpunk and was dropping frames in the hundreds, good old OBS, my God, bless its clunky soul. It really tried to stream, and because it was dropping so many frames, the stream fell behind and there were audio dropouts. And oh, look at this. Even Twitch says that I'm back online. Again, I want to apologize for you having this bad experience. So, lesson learned, don't stream Cyberpunk. Okay, so at least we got a couple of shots lined up that we can edit right now. So I will do pretty much the intro to editing screenshots again, just to be sure that everyone is on the same pace, I wanted to say. Not the same pace, the same page, of course. Again, thank you for bearing with me in these troublesome times. Good. Okay, so at this point we have our screenshots taken from a game of our choice, and paid a lot of attention to having a good perspective, a nice composition, and so on and so forth. But now we want to edit our raw photos that they look a bit nicer and like photos, essentially. So my tool of choice usually is Photoshop, good old Photoshop. If you don't have Photoshop, well, the other tool that I would recommend is Lightroom. But if you say, stupid, I don't have an Adobe account because it costs too much, which I respond with, it makes sense. There's a wonderful freeware tool which allows you also to edit raw photos. And let me bring up, or did I close the tab? No. It is called Raw Therapee, from Raw Therapee with double E at the end .com, and you can get it for Linux, Windows and Mac, and it got a lot of features of Lightroom, not all of them. It got some very nerdy features that Lightroom does not offer you, and the other thing is, if you are incredibly serious about photo editing, well, then I can suggest something that I use for work, usually for coloring videos, that is DaVinci Resolve 17. The cool thing about this is there is a free version as well. Cool, now we're in German. Let me switch over to United States. There we go. You can download it, and only the studio version costs something, which is also not a lot, but you can do all the color grading, you can do editing, you can do sound pretty much for no money at all, probably because just Blackmagic wants their program to be widely adopted. So this is another thing. It's a lot more complex, but of course you can achieve a lot better results. But again, for photographs, it might be a bit overkill. But like I said, since I use this to color videos and films and so on at work, I ended up doing some of my vacation photographs even in this program. So Incanibula says, I spy with my eye a picture of Laura Palmer in the background. Oh yes, you know why? Because I had to rip one episode of Twin Peaks, because that I can have something like this, because whenever I mention coffee, there should be some damn fine coffee. Why is there no damn fine coffee? You know what? I realized that I just realized that you couldn't follow what I was showing on screen because I still had the camera in full on me. Again, I'm sorry. So this is raw Therapee, again, for Linux, Windows and Mac. It's rawtherapee.com is the address. And the other thing here is DaVinci Resolve 17. You can download it for free, like I said. It's color grading, it's editing. There's a new version in beta right now, so this one might be the overkill for photos and screenshots. But again, if you want all the power you can get, there you get it. And this was the reason why I was late with my stream today, because I had to finish this little overlay there. So, Razor Claw says, first stream I've been in, what are we doing? We've been taking screenshots in Cyberpunk 2077, and it went horrible. The stream completely went out of sync by 2 minutes. Everyone was having a bad time. Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. And right now I'm just giving you a quick overview of cool programs that allow you to edit your photos, because I feel that screenshots nowadays can be considered photographs. Okay, so let's start with raw Therapee, that in case you don't want to spend money on Adobe, that you can follow along. Again, it's not my number one choice, but you can see probably, I just give you an overview and then I will continue in Photoshop, but just in the raw editing tool in Photoshop. Okay, because if you want to edit screenshots, there are some gotchas. Well, at least there's just one gotcha in there, and I want to make sure that you that you know what it is. Okay, so my in-game sources there should be all my new photos there that I just took, and it is completely empty. How is this possible? Commander Stitch says, Phil was trying to make it more memorable. Yes. Okay, so, but the photos that we just took, where are they? The thing is, they are saved as PNG files, and let me try to zoom in. Another instance of Glass Brick is running. Well, I bricked Glass Brick apparently, because it didn't work. Well, it's still running, but it's not doing anything, because I think this also might have been the problem why Cyberpunk was behaving such badly, because I'm running a Glass Brick. Apparently not, but Glass Brick is certain that it is running. This is just a tool that allows me to zoom into my screen like you would be able on a Mac. I just restarted Glass Brick and now it works. Okay. Wonderful. So this icon here allows you to get into the settings. If I click it and the preferences, there we are. And yeah, you have to, in the file browser, you have to select the PNG, which is innocuously the only parsed extension that's off by default. So if we switch this one on, I would hope that that my photos show up. There we go. Wonderful. Okay. Razorclaw says, I know nothing about editing, so this will be an interesting experience. Oh, I hope so. Thank you. If you have any questions, now that we aren't removed by a couple of minutes from each other now, please let me know in the chat. Okay, so there we got some of our pictures that we've taken, and you know what? Let's start with this one. and see what we can do. So there, of course, it says EXIF data is not available because this didn't come from a digital camera. But my workflow usually is this. First, I take care of the exposure, that I get something that looks nice, and you can see how much I can turn up and down the exposure here. But the downside is that, as you can see here, now those lights get this ugly burned out appeal. Now, if this was one of the reasons, like I said, why I want to take pictures as dark as possible, because now they also look burned out. But if we switch over between those two, you can see here that this blob looks a bit better or more defined in the one where let me just reset this. I said reset, where everything was very dark. So again, since this is a digital image, don't have to worry about noise or anything too much, because everything is rendered and you don't have any noise and so on. Okay, so again, this I would say something like this looks okay in terms of exposure. Then of course we can, right here it says clip out of gamut colors. Sometimes you want this. In my opinion, I don't want this most of the time. The gamut is the ability to reproduce a certain color. And when you mess with the exposure, or especially the saturation, some colors are more saturated than the display is able to handle them. And this is the color gamut. And sometimes you want this to be clipped. But for example, when I zoom in, if you look at this heart shape here, when I don't allow it to clip, it looks more natural. Also this yellow here. The downside of this is because I made the signs so bright, now it looks a bit weird. So yeah, again, if it looks right, it is right. Pick the one that looks best for you. But we are not done yet. We can mix up or just make some adjustments. Here it's just how far we want the black to come up and so on and so forth. Right now I keep it as it is because like I said, first I want to get the exposure right. And by right I mean just that it looks pleasing to the eye, no matter how many errors or like things like those burned out highlights there are. Because in the next step I can always fix those little errors or things that I don't like in terms of color and so on. But first, as always, is just the brightness. Okay, so the next thing is we can do something here with contrast, but now with this clip out of gamut colors, when you diminish the contrast, things get even worse. But I think I am quite happy with the contrast, maybe a bit more like so. And the saturation, to have most of the times, at least in my experience is that things are too saturated. Most of the times, because we all know having beautiful saturated vivid colors always looks nice. Just going to your electronics store, if it got open during Corona times, and look at all those TVs and everyone is cranked up to 1000 in terms of saturation, just that it looks nice. But if we look at this image there, this one looks a bit garish and a bit cheap, like something like a thumbnail from a not so experienced YouTuber just really trying to get some attention. But as a photograph, I mean, this could be a style. Personally, I would like it a bit better if it's more subdued. This looks more filmic to me, if that's the look that we want to go for. So this is why I like to turn down the saturation a bit. And the next thing is shadows and highlights. Again, we got here different tabs. Let me zoom in. We got here different tabs on the top that are concerned with different things. You can see here the first one is just for exposure, the second one is just for detail, color, and the advanced tab and cropping and so on and so forth. So right now I'm again just taking care of exposure. So next up is shadow and highlights, and this is a good way to dial down or dial back some of those highlights without affecting too much of the other image. One thing that's important with raw Therapee is you have to enable it. By default, this is disabled, so just click here and now it's enabled. Because otherwise, this is what happened with me the first time, I was just pulling and nudging everything and nothing happened. So now I can, when I turn up here the highlights come back in. Should we like this? Again, you can see there the image is starting to break apart in this portion here, so I might be okay. This was tone mapping. There we are with highlights. So maybe this was too strong. Let's try it here with the shadows and get some rid of the shadows. But now, yeah, the contrast is gone. Never mind, I keep it as it is. Tone mapping is also a good way to make it a bit more filmic in a sense. I'm not quite sure what tones are mapped, but you can change here, for example, pretty much the details in terms of exposure and contrast and so on and so forth. But one thing that I've noticed here is that it's quite choppy. So again, this is a freeware tool, so it's not super optimized and so on and so forth. So then, of course, we got a vignette filter that is just the darkening of the image towards the corners and so on. You really have to be subtle with this one because for one thing, it makes an image look nicer by just, I mean, if I just turn it up, it looks already a bit more appealing. The thing is, at a certain point, you get tunnel vision. If you do this on pretty much every shot, especially in video, sometimes you see it's just been used way too much. The other thing to make it more dreamy is to use a negative value for vignette, that the edges become a bit brighter and so on. And feather is just how strong this effect is towards the center and so on. So this is always nice, and sometimes I like I said, to give an image more punch, this vignette filter can do wonders. Again, if you get a moving image, for example, if you use it as a post effect on your Unity game camera, it might become really obvious. So if you have it in your game, especially if in your first person camera view, use it extremely subtle. It could always, like I said, it could always be too much. So if you notice it, it's too strong. The next thing here are graduated filters. And this is also a very powerful thing because it's like having a gradient on top of your image. And this one, essentially, you can see what it does here. You can essentially change just portions of your image via a gradient. This is also very powerful if you want to diminish certain areas, the importance of certain areas. But yeah, I'm not using it right now, just so you know, because probably I will be using it in Photoshop later on. And of course, you got your beautiful different values for curves. This is something that I'm not really not aware of, because you don't have this in Lightroom, for example, or Photoshop. Okay, so once I got the exposure right, roughly, I mean, we also had here could play a bit here with saturation, but next is I go over to color. And the first thing that is very powerful here is white balance. By default, it is on. And just by changing the temperature, you can give an image a completely different look. I mean, now we got, at least in my editing, when I'm using something that's supposed to look a bit more cyberpunky, I always go for a temperature where the shadows are got this little blue appeal here. For some reason, this reminds me a lot more of Blade Runner, of the first one. Then, of course, the temperature between warm, where it gets really reddish warm, or super cold blue. Yeah, you can see the image breaking apart if you go too far. But the other thing there is the tint. This is sometimes very helpful when you want to get rid of certain miscoloring from indoor lighting, because sometimes those fluorescent lights, some are green, some are purple, and here with tint you can also adjust this a bit. And for example, here, if you go with the temperature a bit towards cool and the tint a bit towards green, bam, you got some sort of matrix effect there. But yeah, this is not what I'm going for. Let's reset this thing here, and let's say I want it to be a bit more on the blue, like this. But now what things that I don't like is, for example, what is happening here now in the highlights, and also this greenish yellow color is not too nice. But we got here the channel mixer, which I also need to turn on, and this allows us to change essentially the colors of a certain channel. And it's easy if you know what you're doing. But if you don't, no worries. Again, color grading and photo editing is, if it looks right, it is right. Maybe you make things a bit harder or easier for yourself down the line, but then of course this also provided that you really know what you want to be doing. And also, even for myself, when I'm just trying out or messing about with photo editing, I deliberately try not to have a certain idea, an endpoint in mind, because it's the journey. And sometimes, especially if you have an idea where you want to go and you really can't push the image towards this idea that you have, you're having a bad time, and also the result suffers. But if you're just exploring what is possible in an image, as we've seen before in my horrible first attempt there trying to position the camera in Cyberpunk, it starts there. You just try around and look through the viewfinder and see if something looks nice. And of course, one thing that's pretty cool is black and white. It's here under color and you have to activate it. And black and white is not just simply desaturating everything, but it's more like take only the red channel or take only the blue channel to a certain amount. And because you can say, yeah, if I want more influence of the green channel and so on, the resulting black and white image will look different. For example, if I put a red filter on everything, then everything that is red in the image will appear as if it were white in the black and white thing and so on. I hope this makes sense. Rather Jolly says, I really like what you said about the journey to get to the end result. That is absolutely how I make my best doodles. Yeah, right. If you it took me a long time to figure this out, but if you have a certain endpoint in mind, you're completely focused on this. And if you're not a real pro, and I know that in most of the things that I do, I am not, you probably won't arrive there where you want to go. And this is incredibly frustrating. And yeah, the journey suffers, your motivation suffers, and also the artwork, whatever it will be in the end, suffers. So again, it's just, as Bob Ross said, just happy little accidents along the way, and you will arrive at something. And then again, maybe it's like dropping paint on the canvas. It could be an accident, but then, yeah, you know what? You could make a little tree out of it, and suddenly it looks much more interesting than whatever you had as your first idea where to go with things. Yeah, I just want to finish here in raw therapy because, like I said, I'm not very used to it, and I get to better results with a tool that I'm more familiar with, that is the raw editing tool in Photoshop or Lightroom. But in case that you're working with this one, I just quickly show you, once you're done with all these adjustments, how to get this thing rendered out. The cool thing about this is this entire process is non-destructive. You're always working on the source photograph, and everything is just metadata. If you were to open this file there, it would still look in the file explorer as the original file, but next to it there's a metadata file that's just for raw therapy, so that whenever you open this photo in raw therapy, it will apply all those filters, which you can again just change to your heart's content. So again, it's non-destructive. But if you want to render this out, you have to add it to the queue. It's just right-clicking and put to queue, and there you got this tab of the queue. It's here right under editor, and the file browser is the queue. And then you just say where you want to save it and at what file format, and there you go. So this is how to use raw therapy. And again, if your PNG files don't show up in the preferences in the file browser, you have to activate PNG, because by default it is the only parsed extension that is not activated for some reason, just so you know. Okay, let's do essentially the same thing there, but in Photoshop. Photoshop is pretty neat, like I said, because it got this raw mode there. I just have to find now the photo that we had before. There we go. You can see this one here, this PP3. This is just the metadata. This is like 12 kilobytes, and it just describes what raw therapy did to this photo. In this case, the same thing. So okay, let's load this into Photoshop again. And if you've been a long time Photoshop user, or just very, let's say, a very basic Photoshop user, you know that you can use image and adjustments, the levels, the curves, exposure, and so on and so forth. Hue, contrast, and color balance. This is nice, which is the problem is that this is also destructive. There's a better way if you want to keep editing things, is to use adjustment layers. For example, here with the curves, those adjustment layers just stack on top. And the cool thing is you can use layer masks, and maybe if I draw something here with black, it gets excluded from this layer mask, and pretty much everything, it remains what is underneath that layer and so on. So even with that, this is quite powerful. But like I said, I want to treat my screenshots like as if they were actual photographs. And for that, there is a filter that is called the Camera Raw filter. It's here under Filters and Camera Raw filters. And this opens up an entire new screen tool window, and here on my other screen. And this is the Camera Raw filter. And you can see it looks a lot like 3D Therapee, but got some additional different tools. Oh, by the way, I completely omitted that. Rather Trolley said, absolutely, thanks Phil, and thanks Bob Ross, I would assume. Okay, so what I like about this Camera Raw thing here is that you can, here in the histogram on top, there we are, when you hover over it, you have already selected different regions, and then you just click and pull and pretty much can adjust here, for example, the exposure, like so, just by clicking. Again, you can also use there the sliders, but to me I really like to work there on the histogram view, so I can really see if something is clipping or not. Talking of clipping, you can see here we got a similar issue with this heart shape here. Again, I can't disable clipping now in Camera Raw from Adobe. So this is another thing, again, that Raw Therapee has over Photoshop in this regard. Okay, so by the way, is this window too large there? Because, yeah, this looks better because I didn't see the entire image there. Also, you can have here the toggle, how it was before. And you can even have this comparison view. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing again, I'm just make sure that, yeah, this is a split screen, by the way, which I don't really need right now. How do I turn it off? I think now it's turned off. Okay. Again, yeah, right. First, the brightness, and Photoshop says here, yeah, it's also nice if you can do the white balance here. Again, it doesn't go as far as Raw Therapee, so you can't intentionally break the image should you want to, but it's still got a nice range. So I'm going for this color here, maybe a bit cooler and so on. The next thing is that you want to avoid is getting the skin tones or getting them wrong somehow, that they look sickly if it's not intentional. Okay, another thing that is always nice in terms of colors is if you have color harmonies. I did a talk half a year before, but very quickly, color harmonies. There was this one tool, the color wheel. Was it the color wheel? No, it was color, not Colorado. Color wheel. Was not from Adobe, which is also good. I mean, if I can see it, color wheel interactive. If I can see it, I know which one it is. Peloton, this one. This was the one that I wanted. Yes, I accept any old cookie you throw at me. Okay, so in terms of color harmony, this is just very quick. You got a couple of color harmonies, and the first one here is, of course, yeah, I know how this thing works. Just move it along here. So if you get one color, of course, you get a monotone, monochromatic color harmony. And when you add a complementary color, which is, you can see on the color wheel, essentially the one on the opposite. And if you just look at this preview here, no matter which colors you pick, they always look somehow appealing next to each other. For example, here, this teal and orange, this is, you see in pretty much all the Michael Bay movies. This is, again, so widely adopted that it's almost become a joke. But essentially, you want to keep to have not too many colors. You can also select different color schemes. For example, here's the adjacent color scheme, where all the colors are essentially just related close to each other there on the color wheel. And if you add a complementary color, it still looks very appealing, those colors that you have. Again, this is just something to keep in mind, if possible, when you work with colors. The problem here is you can see there are too many colors, and this is why the image looks a bit busy or not really focused. For example, we got here some green, but there's also the blue, and there's this reddish orange there, which also tends towards green, and so on and so forth. So in my opinion, there are too many colors in there, so we need to get rid of those. And how to get rid of colors? If I bring up now this color wheel again, well, one thing is, if you got a color where you don't want it to be, for example, like here in this purple, you can just desaturate it selectively, or you can bend its hue that everything that's purple slowly edges towards blue, for example, or edges towards red, whatever is closer to one of those colors that you want. The problem is that things look ugly when you get colors that are too closely related, like this one here. You can see, yeah, I mean, it looks still okay because those are at similar distances from each other. I really can't force them to not to be, but the problem is if their colors are too close together, it looks much better if they're just essentially on the same hue. Again, this is very theoretical, but yeah, this is my main job is concerned with colors. So yeah, but I will show it to you how this works in practice. Right, one thing that is also very cool is this texture and clarity slider there, which increases the contrast of not of overall of the image. I mean, we can do this. This is how much we can pump up the contrast, which is too much, but sometimes you just want more contrast in certain like textures, right? And when I turn up here the texture, you can see what is happening there. The entire image gets a bit crisper, more contrasty, and the same thing here with clarity, and you can both stack them. It probably is too much, but sometimes it is really nice to get some more details out. Again, it's like a hammer, and now everything is a nail that you can find because it makes image look so much nicer and crisper. Right, and then we got here vibrance and saturation. What is the difference between vibrance and saturation? If I turn down vibrance or if I turn down saturation, it looks pretty much that the same thing is happening. Vibrance is also concerned with saturated colors, but while saturation treats all the color hues pretty much the same, vibrance tries to respect different hues. For example, if you turn up the vibrance, the skin tones stay largely unaffected, because if you turn up the saturation with skin tones, everyone looks like a red piggy. So yeah, vibrance, usually I would go for vibrance just because it get a bit finer control than saturation. Right, okay, but we're still concerned there with the colors, and this is where the color mixer comes in. And this essentially, you got here the tabs between hue, saturation, and luminance. And I mean, it's luminance and saturation is pretty self-explanatory. For example, if I turn down the yellow luminance, this is what happens. Everything that is yellow gets desaturated. Everything that is aqua gets desaturated, not desaturated, gets brighter or darker, right? So the problem is that this might lead to artifacts. So this is why I use it only sparingly. Now here the same thing with saturation. If I turn down the reds, everything that is red gets desaturated or more saturated, and so on. Magenta, you get the point, right? I reset this, but the hue thing is, this is what I told you before, that you can bend something that's there on purple, that it's biased more towards blue, or that it effectively becomes more to red. And you can do this with all the colors, or at least those one pre-selected, the reds, oranges, yellows by Adobe. Like I said, the cool thing about this is that you can really get rid of colors that are too closely related. For example, here now let's see the aquas and the greens. I try to get them, look at this, the greens I put more towards the orange and yellow, the orange more towards yellow, the reds also more towards orange, the yellows themselves also more red, and so on. And you can see there that I'm just reducing the amount different colors that are in the picture. And by that, it looks a bit less busy than before if I turn it off and on. I said if I turn it off and on, color mixer off and on, one click. Does this take so long? Okay, this was completely before and after. Okay, it's apparently it's a little bit buggy. Okay, I have to hold it. Now it makes sense. So this is how it looked before and how it looks after. So again, it looks pretty similar, right? Just a small touch in terms of how the colors changed. But overall, for example, this largely this gradient between where it was red here and then went to yellow and green before, like this, is gone. It's pretty much now the same hue. The only thing that you have to be on the lookout for is where colors are mixing. I mean, most of the time it looks nice, but sometimes you can get weird color fringes there. But for this now, it looks good. I mean, still right now, maybe this green is a bit too... It's still another color that I don't want, maybe, but then again, it still needs another color in there. Otherwise, it would be just two colors, essentially. So let's zoom out again. So yeah, this is very quickly how to make it a bit more appealing. Cool, so the next thing is, you can see I'm using all the tools at my disposal, is color grading. And this one, you can see here, you got color wheels, but for different brightness portions. For example, here with the shadows, I can say I only want what's in the shadows to go blue or yellow or orange and so on and so forth. And do this differently for the highlights, and then I can blend here the balance between those two. Like I said, I like it in Blade Runner when the shadows are kind of blue. This might be too much, but with blue sometimes it always tends to lean towards purple, and this is why I make sure it's more towards the aqua blue like this. And with the highlights, since this is Cyberpunk, I like to go a bit more yellow greenish, more yellow, something like this. And now I just try to see with the balance where things are. Does it look better if everything is warm, or does it look better if it's a bit bluish? I mean, this blue is much too intense, but somehow I like it. Looks like some weird nighttime shot. But yeah, I tried to land here where before the skin tones pick up this bluish tint, I think here. So before and after, it got a bit more punch, but yeah, maybe it's too much. Maybe the blue is too much. Again, there is no right or wrong here, just go with what looks good. Of course, you can also do the same thing here with the midtones, but most of the time I leave them alone, because then I got better control between what's going on between those. Only the shadows and the highlights. By the way, those sliders here, you can also selectively say, yeah, I want all my shadows to be even darker, or I want to brighten up the shadows to have the image become a bit more milky, which is also sometimes a nice look. You get this with a lot of filters, as they are called in Instagram, for example. Okay. So I think I'm quite happy with how this one looks, but I said there are still some more things that you can do in Photoshop. The other thing is here with optics. This is usually if to fix the optical properties of certain lenses, especially fisheye lenses and so on. You can distort them back, that all the lines that were curved before and towards the edges, that they become right again. But also you can use it if you have a wide angle image there, you can also artificially make it even more wide angle-y there, that around the corners, that it looks more like a photograph or shot through a lens. Then of course we can add some grain, which usually I don't really like because it's too much most of the time. And the other thing is we can do selective corrections. If you recall from raw Therapee before, we could have this one gradient, and we can also have something here in Photoshop as well. Get here a graduated filter, a radial filter, and so on. We can even say red eye removal, which is something that we hardly use, but we can also essentially just paint certain areas in the image that we want to change. Okay, but right now I'm just drawing up a graduated filter, and with just where this filter is, I can also change the exposure, change the temperature, and so on. And by doing so, for example, I think this part there, this portion there on the image is not important. This photo is more about her. So it's not so important that we can clearly see what is going on there, because it might be a bit distracting. But again, I'm just, for one thing is, if you have something with less contrast, it's not as appealing to look at, or at least when viewing something with not a lot of contrast, and there is something with a lot of contrast, in this case, this part has little contrast, while she in the foreground is the one that has the most contrast. This is where we usually look at. The other thing is, of course, when we make something darker, this also means that it is not that interesting to look at, because if you've played games like even back to Half-Life 2, players usually go where there are things that are bright. It's like moths. You can you can direct players by just having everything dark and just a colorful light sources that light on something, and players will go there, of course, because it looks like something is there. And the same thing is how our perception works. Usually we go for things that are bright, then we go for things that have high contrast over low contrast, then we go for things that are saturated over less saturated, and then we go over things that have a high resolution that we can make out better, that are not blurry or something. And this is, I think, what's it called, the hierarchy of perception. I don't know where I've read it, probably not on Reddit, but yeah, I've been following it ever since, and so far never had problems with it. Okay, so this is our graduated filter. Of course, you can have multiple graduated filters should you need them. Again, less is usually more, but this was one too much maybe. Why? Okay, so maybe I give this one here, turn up the exposure and turn down the contrast. That it looks like there is a bright light source that's coming there from this window there. Always you can see me looking in this direction. This is where I have my OBS open. It's always good to have a little thumbnail, or just sometimes it just zoom out and see if everything that is important in the composition is still important, or still comes off as important, as legible. And if we compare now how it looked before and how it looked after at this super tiny thumbnail size, let me zoom in a bit again. Yeah, there is quite a substantial improvement, I would say, over how it looked before. And right, and the other things that I could do now is, of course, first fit in view. I can not only do adjustments via a gradiated filter or so, but I can also use here a brush, for example, and just draw here where I want certain selective adjustments to happen. Maybe I want her brighter or darker, but the problem usually is that you really have to be very subtle, otherwise it comes off as incredibly wrong, or it looks like over edited and so on and so forth. So this is why I just, I delete this now, because I don't really need it. Sometimes you like, I like to do this, for example, here with this neon sign. Maybe I want to make it to have it appear that it's super bright or something, but again, it looks most of the time it looks fake, so this is why I keep it away. Okay, and this was the raw Photoshop raw edit mode, or the camera raw mode, and now when I hit OK, this is destructive, because in Photoshop, I mean, I can always have a version that I saved before using this one, but it's not that I can bring it up again and make changes to this. Unless, of course, I save it, and by using the 3-button menu here, I can say save settings, and then I can save the settings for this photo. Usually I don't, but sometimes you want to come back to it and save the settings, and then if you get got the original raw file, the unedited file there, this one, before the changes, then you can again tweak around. But now if I bring up the photo raw tool again, then it works with this one that we have here. You see everything is reset at 0, and if I turn down the exposure, pretty much everything that we've now cut off is gone. So I think this one looks nice. What do you what are your impressions of this photo? I mean, it's not the best one, but I mean it looks okay. And you know what, I will even save it and call it just edit_photo mode. Oh, excuse me, maybe I should have some more coffee.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
Milky goodness. I really should switch my posture, because I'm becoming slowly Mr. Burns the longer I sit in front of my computer. Right, so this was, well, I mean, we could say it was some portrait photo editing, maybe. Where do we have the other photos? Here we have them. So yeah, you can see here clearly the difference between those photos. Now let's have a look at this, the first urban photo that I took, that was this dark one here. Rather Jolly says, I like it, and Cursey Boo gives me a thumbs up. So thank you so much for sticking with me. Okay, so let's try this photo raw mode on this one. And with architecture, yeah, one thing is, let's make it brighter, like so. And again, you can see now, because it was still super dark before, but it's not like that we've lost a lot of information. The only thing is, it gets a bit grainy. I'm not quite sure if you can see it, but here, for example, there's a lot of grain in the sky, also on this overpass here, which is a hallmark of the red engine. You could say, my God, I don't like it. Why should it introduce grain to something? Why switched off grain? The good thing about this is that the grain is good against banding, and banding is an artifact that if you have a very subtle gradient and suddenly have to increase the contrast, as we did here, to make it to get it out of how dark it is, suddenly you get bands of brightness, and it's not a smooth gradient anymore. It's like 4 or 5 or 6 bands of clearly defined different shades of blue, for example. And with this little noise there, this looks much more realistic, and I really like that the CD Projekt Red's engine is doing it such nicely. As a colorist, I can approve. Okay, but the downside is that, of course, it changed the color, because I had to overexpose it now by a couple of steps, and everything is green now. So yeah, we have to do a color correction. And usually when something is of a certain color, you do the exact opposite. Again, if I bring up here the color wheel, if something is, let me bring it up here, if something is green, what do? You add purple, and vice versa. So we can do this here now via Tint, and again, just increase it until it looks purple. So this might be too much, this might be too little. So somewhere in between, I'm just slowly inching in towards something that looks right. Same thing is here. Maybe I want it a bit cooler or warmer, but just a bit cooler like this. Maybe it's now too purple again, so I'll bring it back into green. And I would say, yeah, this looks okay. So if we compare it how it looked before, yeah, we've completely lost there this grate or grid in this street light here, as you can see, as it was before. But again, we can just selectively turn down the highlights again, and you look at this, suddenly it comes back. You don't want to overdo this, because if you turn down the highlights and then turn up the shadows, it looks pretty flat, so, and it loses a lot of appeal. So maybe I just want to bring it down a little bit, just that we have a hint here of what was there before. Okay, so I'm trying now to get clarity and texture up again, so that it looks super crisp, and again, this was too much. And this dehaze slider allows you to, Photoshop tries to find where the atmospheric haze is in an image and tries to diminish it or emphasize it. Sometimes this is nice if you want to have something to give something a little bit of a foggy appeal. Just turn up the dehaze in the negatives and you got haze. Otherwise, it might be a bit too contrasty right now, so I'll just leave it alone. Again, vibrance and contrast. Vibrance and saturation. here this red gets overemphasized, which I don't like, but yeah, maybe I just keep it as it is. Okay, so it looks still a bit flat and lacking in contrast. So if I turn up the contrast now, there is not much that's happening, because the problem was, or the issue why this is happening was I had to turn up the contrast or the exposure that much just to get it into a nice looking image, that it doesn't look as underexposed as it was before. So the downside, of course, is that we lost some colors there. So maybe I get back into the green, and again I go here to my color grading and see what I can do to make it look more urban. Again, urban to me is blue in the shadows and also a bit blue in the highlights, but not too much. I mean, it's evening, maybe a bit more yellowy. And I will also try here to see what I can do with the midtones. Again, I'm just dialing around, and this looks kind of nice. This looks kind of nice. I mean, it could be worse, right? And yeah, I'm just playing around here with the balance. Usually something that looks like there's, I mean, it's too much if everything gets the same color on one end or on the other. And I'm just seeing where there's enough color differentiation between the colors that are involved. Right, color grading, color mixer, there we go. So the reds is too saturated, so I turn them down, and you can see that it looks, this is just the saturation, not the brightness, but it also affects the brightness. This is also here in luminance. Sometimes with reds, usually they come off as way too strong. So usually I just desaturate them and also decrease their luminance, and they still look very strong, but don't look like, yeah, cheap video game colors. Okay, and now I'm just trying to see how I can change here the sky color, but I think I like it. And again, just playing around here with how I like it, essentially. But if in doubt, always go for, not too closely related on the color circle, on the color wheel. So, but if you do something and you don't see any effect that it has, then just put it somewhere in the middle of what's before and after. Otherwise, you might introduce some weird artifacts there. Yeah, maybe make it a bit darker again so that it looks like an early nighttime shot. So I think this looks much better now, that it's like this magic hour where the sun has just set. And maybe it's a bit too blue now, everything. So when I bring it back to yellow, well, it's now to purple, now it's to green. Yeah, it's a back and forth. But in the end, I think the longer you allow yourself to tinker with it, the better it looks. You can see here now that I'm decreasing the yellows up and down, but it doesn't really look like yellow. It looks more like the green is affected. And the reason for this is, I think, this is just an assumption, but I think the color mixer in Photoshop applies its effects before doing the white balance, I think, or before doing all of the others. So I am not quite sure what the hierarchy is, what comes first, what the succession of effects is, but sometimes this is why I always have to try and just play around. For example, here the orange. Yeah, this is clearly the reds that I'm changing there with the saturation, but yeah. Okay, the reds is also this one. So yeah, who knows? Actually, who knows? And the greens, yeah, those look like greens to me. I really like it that the green color gives it a different feel, but without the greens, it looks very monochromatic, but also not too bad. So maybe just have a bit of green. And now I'm just trying what I can do if I turn up the brightness, the luminance of green. Does this change things or does it make things worse? Maybe it makes them a bit better. Also here with the red, I make the red a bit brighter. The oranges also, that it has a bit of punch there. Magenta doesn't do anything. Purples doesn't do anything. Blues is just concerned with the sky. So yeah, should we change the sky to something purple like this? Or keep it as cool steel blue, as it were? I think I like it. So if we look at before and after, it's a completely different world, right? So if I apply now what we did, oh crap. Oh my god, this was all in vain because shit. See, this is a bad thing, what happens when you don't save your presets. Because I had this before and after still on the before value, so pretty much everything that we just did was in vain. Never mind, I can do it again, but I don't want to do it right now. Right. So let me see if we got another photo then that we can work with. I took many photos so far. Let me just show you here the extra large icons. Maybe there is something among those that we can work with that looks nice. Again, usually I'm not actively going around taking photos in the game. It's most of the time it's just I'm seeing something and I think, oh my god, I need to take a picture of this. This looks like an interesting NPC, or this here the colors look nice. For example, this one here. Yeah, again, I'm just turning down on my screenshots the exposure, so this is why they look a bit dark. But yeah, again, just something where I thought, my god, this looks nice. I think this is interesting. I think I should take a picture of this. For example, just some urban landscapes. You know what? Maybe we can do something with more NPCs. Maybe we can do something with a vehicle. This looks fun, or maybe not. NPCs. Yeah, you can see why I said that this district looks a lot like Los Angeles. Look at her. Maybe we could do something with her gold skin, because I think it's lacking a bit, or it's a bit too much. I edited one of the photos that I took of this NPC before as well, but let's try it again. Maybe it will come out completely different. Again, like I said, just don't have any preset conceptions of where you want to go. Okay, so this is the source image, but we can make it much better. For one thing is that I don't like about this is that she completely blends into the background. So let's first see if I can turn up the exposure. Yes. When I turn up the exposure, you can see this gold sheen on her face from before becomes suddenly this ugly red. And so, yeah, we should take care of this. Okay, so first thing is I'm doing the white balance now. Again, maybe have it a bit more blue, that her face really stands out when it does, or if it does. So maybe the exposure was too much, and I try now to roll back the highlights. And again, the colors are all over the place. So you can see why I said this looks very cheap, because now her skin, it's supposed to be gold or golden, and it is white, it is red, it is green, and it is gray, essentially. So we need to do something about this. And for one thing is, if I turn down, you can see here the vibrance already, it helps a lot. The skin looks a lot better, but it lost pretty much everything else that is there in the scene. So I'm not touching it right now. Can we do something there with the saturation? No. I turn up the texture, and suddenly you can see she peels herself from the background. She becomes much more visible, and with a bit of clarity as well. So before and after, we can already see that there's some improvement going on there. Opapi says, hey, finally managed to get into another stream of yours. So much appreciated. Thank you so much for dropping by. We're just making this screenshot look nice. Again, this is how it looked before, and we just make it a bit brighter and more interesting. So here in the color mixer, this is where the magic happens. Pretty much everything that is red, I dial now towards orange and yellow, so that we get the different colors that we have here in the gold, essentially just to one color that is gold. So this looks already a bit better from before and after, but it's still too saturated, especially the yellows. So I turn down, but the yellows are what's outside, so it's more the oranges. The oranges, yeah. and the reds look good now. So okay, I'm pretty happy that the skin really looks golden. So this we preserved by just doing a lot of adjustments. As you can see, just before and after, just doing those little adjustments saved so much of her skin. So now we can work with the rest. For example, the blues in the background, make them stronger, more saturated, but then they become too dark and it's again a bit garish. So I turn it down. The aquas, that is this blend between green and blue. And the green, I don't like the green. And about the yellows, again, the yellows are something that actually we want to keep only in her face, because right now she looks like platinum and not so golden anymore. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do with yellows. Maybe, you know what, maybe I turn them down like this. Still looks nicer. So just playing around there with the saturation, the exposure again. And now with the saturation, because if I turn up the vibrance, I still retain some of the colors. But yeah, again, it's just going back and forth. So one thing there is on her shoulders, this magenta, or what this color is, might be a bit too strong as it was before. Then I can bend it towards blue or towards red. I think towards red looks nicer. Yeah, and also let's take care of the greens in the background here. I think if it's more on the bluish side, it could look a lot better. One thing that I completely overlooked was that the color grading that I wanted to do with the shadows, that they become a bit more cool and blue. But I think it still works. Make them darker even. So before and after, it looks kind of neat, I would say. Okay, so we want still that she stands out a bit more from the background. One thing is, again, the vignette. That's the darkening towards the edges. This is a negative vignette, or in this case, it's a plus vignette. So, I mean, since she's already got the spotlight on her, I don't think that I need a vignette to emphasize her, because she's already standing there dead center. And maybe let's see just if I can do something there with the highlights to make it more golden. And yes, I can. Yes, I can. If I turn off now just the color grading, you can see that the color grading gives the entire image this nice little contrast there, that is dark blue in the shadows and this golden yellow. And again, if we come back to the color wheel, what do I have here? Well, I have this blue and the yellow. Well, it's a bit more in the reds, but you can see how easy it is when you really can follow something that is this color harmony there. Maybe I can add here a third color, and this third color, or in our case, I mean, since we're on blue, and it's no matter, just two colors essentially work. I mean, we still got this little purple on her, and if we look at the color wheel, the purple is around here. So it's also a nice, maybe we can make it like this. It's also a very nice color scheme that we have here, and it's also a harmony, and harmonies are good. So pretty much diminished all the other colors that would be problematic. Okay, so one thing is now that I want her to stand out a little bit more of the background, and the vignette didn't cut it, but I can use a manual adjustment brush and do it very subtly. I mean, I like the size of my brush because it's very big and soft on the edges, but way too strong in terms of exposure. So I undo pretty much all the adjustments. I still have the selection painted essentially. And now I turned up the contrast, the exposure just a little bit. And Opapi played Pink Fluffy Unicorns. I should hear it. Thank you so much for spending your bits on a beautiful unicorn song. Amazing. It was a good idea to put this song in. Right. And again, I just tried to increase a bit of the contrast on her features. Again, that she still looks like not edited in a sense, but that's still, there is this feeling that she's in front of something, that she's not part of the background, or where her hair is not part of the background. Of course, I could draw this all over her, but then again, it would be a bit too much, so I just undo this and do it where it needs to be done. Papi says, no problem, been following your awesome Ludendar videos for quite some time, can't miss out on the unicorn, then noticed it in the background. Yes, of course, always we got always unicorns around us, because unicorns are just beautiful, and I said unicorn like 3 times. And where is my glass of water that I should have a sip? Thank you, Frank. Thank you so much. You know what? I need a on my stream deck, I need an animation or a sound just whenever I say unicorn, but right now I don't have anything, so yeah. Coffee.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
Good. Okay, so let's finish this artwork then. Again, I will try also with the selective edit. Maybe I can make her even more golden. I mean, this looks quite golden right now, but maybe it's too much. For one thing, you can see that it's bleeding in the background, so the background is also getting golden, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And the other thing is that I really like that she's picking up the environment color that is blue. Otherwise, if her face was just this golden, I mean, it looks really nice, golden, right? But it looks more like she's not part of the entire environment, because, like I said, everything is blue around her. So I'll just make it just a little bit, and yeah, I think this is good. The other thing is her eyes should be bluish, right? What's in the original? Yeah, it's hard to tell in the original what color her eyes are. Maybe I turn down the highlights or even the whites a bit more, that the white is not clipping too much on her face. Oh, you know what? I can do this with another brush. I just click the plus icon and have here a new adjustment. And on this new adjustment, I just say that the whites get diminished. Yeah, this was too much. The highlights, perhaps, this is also too much. Maybe the exposure, this is way too much. Maybe a little less contrast. Yeah, never mind. Nothing that looks good that I tried. So just keep it as it is. Okay, and I think this should be it. So to summarize again, first get the exposure right. Then, like I said, if you get the exposure roughly right, you can still do manual adjustments if something is too exposed or too little exposed. You can always come back and do those later. Then the next thing is to take care of the colors, and taking care of the colors means use as little colors as you can get away with, and also follow, if you can, the color harmonies. Again, it's just a rough guideline, but if you know your image is entirely orange, and first start out with a monochromatic color, and then it's probably boring if everything has the same color. But if you add a complementary color and have maybe a blue sky there, and it looks nicer. If you got, still assuming that we are on a yellow image, and suddenly you got 3 colors there, and you want no, and you got probably here the sky is blue, and then you got an emerald green oasis in there somewhere, and so on and so forth. So essentially, yeah, just if you follow the color harmonies, you hardly can go wrong there. And also the next thing is, don't oversaturate. You know what? I will save okay, because this looks nice, but if I just turn up the saturation of the entire thing, it already looks a bit garish and too much. And so yeah, this is the other thing. But with less saturation, it looks a lot, it looks more expensive in a sense. I mean, she's made of gold, so the entire establishment there she's working in already looks quite expensive. But if we turn up the colors here, it looks wrong. It looks almost like an EGA image. You know what? We could try this. I can try to make this one here an EGA image. Do I still have here the actions? wood vignette. No, I don't. Maybe I can find them. Many years back, I automated some Photoshop actions where I could pretty much make any image to a Commodore image or an EGA or a CGA image just by clicking once. But yeah, this is essentially, in a nutshell, well, already been talking for 2 hours now. In a nutshell, how to take nice screenshots. So it starts from the composition. Again, think in more in terms of photography and less in terms of first person game, because usually when you look in first person at another NPC, most of the times, at least in earlier games, the camera was at the eye level of your character, so that each time when you looked at another character and you would center them in frame, it would look pretty weird, because you would have the other NPC's head in center of the frame with a lot of sky or just empty space above it. And in later games, I've noticed this in Cyberpunk just now, is that the camera is around chest high. So when you're talking with NPCs, they look very well framed, but usually it feels like you're a bit too small for everything. It doesn't look like you're seeing it from an eye-to-eye perspective. So again, if you can avoid having something look like it's just a first-person camera, go for it. The other thing is when taking screenshots, a narrow field of view is always better. It looks a bit more cinematic. The more wide angle you go, it looks more gamey in a sense. And then when editing your photos, I mean, of course, this comes with a huge caveat that it is okay for you to change the colors. If someone, or if you want to show off your beautiful, colorful game, and then I say, yeah, in the screenshots, just limit yourself to 3 colors or so on, it gives a wrong impression of the game. So this is not so much marketing screenshots, more like artistic screenshots. And the good thing is this also works in real life when taking photos. And of course, again, if it looks right, it is right, and less is more, especially in terms of saturation. At least that's my personal taste. But then again, I work at Red Bull, and where I coined this big and bold, colorful, contrasty look. So yeah, whatever you do, it always has, of course, to work with the intention or the entire atmosphere of something. If you make a horror game, the screenshots of a horror game colorful and bright, probably won't work with the content. But then again, I just thought it might be even nice. I mean, the other thing is that also could be very nice is just trying to make something black and white and it becomes instantly artsy, right? Maybe this was a bit too much, but yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. And Ink and Imbola says, what do you do when you've worked too much and your eyes got fatigue blindness and can't judge the picture anymore? This happens to me pretty much every day. It helps to go for a walk if you can. Even if it's just inside a building. I work night shift, so there is not much to see outside. But otherwise, just go for a walk outside. Just get used to how the colors look in real life. And the other thing is just watch something else. Just watch a movie or a TV show or just anything else, but on the same monitor, so that you essentially just get context for your color editing. So if you think, is the skin tone a bit too green, maybe make it a bit more orange and then more orange, and all you look at is like the same skin tone for 2 hours, and then you watch an episode of your favorite TV show, probably not The Simpsons, because then the skin tones would be too yellow. But either way, then you realize, oh my god, everything is too green, oh my god, I made it too orange. So to me, this is always helpful if I have the context of just some ordinary program, just to see where my editing, color grading fits in there. I hope this helps. And yes, and if you can, always take breaks. I think it is recommended to take a 1 or 2 minute break every hour, that you step away from a screen. My god, I should have done this years ago. I got pretty dry eyes, but at a certain point I realize it, especially when you're doing color editing, color grading stuff for 8 hours straight. At a certain point, even if you take a break and so on, you see something is wrong with this image, but I really can't tell what it is, and no matter what I do, I can't fix it. And this is usually a good point where you say, yep, I'll call it a day and try again the next day, because if you sleep, just sleep over it just once and then come back to it. It's like with programming, right? Sometimes you get stuck and really don't see, what's it called? You don't see the forest for the trees anymore. And the next day you come back and there you go. So yeah, this would be my recommendation in this. I hope this helps. But thanks for the question. It's a good question, because this is something that I learned the hard way. First I thought, oh my God, how do the pros do this? Oh my God, I'm such an imposter. I don't know what to fix with this because I don't see it anymore. And yeah, I've learned even the pros, just take a break. Sadly, already got to go. Have a nice evening though. Thank you so much for dropping by, Opapi. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And yeah, with that, I don't know. Should we take another photo? Should we try to make another screenshot look nice? Maybe I got a screenshot from another game. This could also be interesting, because right now everything is Cyberpunk, right? Let me see, where are my in-game sources then? The Rather Jolly says, great advice, Phil. Same goes for sound design. Really everything. Yeah, really everything. As soon as it's artistic, usually you're so concerned with certain details, you really need to find a way to see the whole picture again. And yeah, with photo editing, it's literally the whole picture. But yeah, sometimes it's with coding or audio editing, you're too deep into something, and then you really know that you should change things. Okay, I got here some screenshots from Control, which is also a game that has ray tracing in there. And this was before I knew, or before there even was a photo mode, so this is why we still got the UI in there. But I thought, yeah, still take photos in the game, and then maybe just yeah, edit it out. Just do a little retouching there on the UI that I can get rid of it. But I mean, look at some of those super nicely lit scenes in the game. This is super nice. So yeah, again, as you can see, I'm a sucker for ray traced games because it looks so realistic. I really like how games have come such a long way that it really looks like there is the actual light sources in there, and all the physically based surfaces reflected accordingly and correctly, and so on and so forth. So, but where do I have oh, look at this. I think those are already that I edited out the UI there, I think, but not on all of them. But, oh, photo mode. I got an entire folder that just says photo mode. Okay, so this is better. And also here we can see that there is some bokeh going on there. This is when I tried to play the game and said everything at 4K resolution, because to take nicer pictures in 4K, and cranked everything up to max. And at this point, the textures wouldn't load anymore. So yeah, I got a lot of pixels now, but since the textures don't load, it looks like crap, so never mind. This is when I switched back, I think, to not to HD, but not to have it super high in resolution. So yeah, you can see I took a lot of pictures there, and also this game has an option to have certain filters, as it's called. It's just lookup tables where how certain colors behave. For example, this one is also a bit more towards orange and teal, and then I took another screenshot without it so that I could see the difference between those, because in the end I like to roll my own color correction. And by the way, this is the color grading in the game. And this is when you switch it off. In the photo mode, you can switch it off and just get the raw image before post-processing. And you can see sometimes it's really strong what games can get away with. And this is good because, yeah, sometimes as a viewer, you get used to a certain look pretty quickly, and then it doesn't look that different anymore. So yeah, a couple of action shots as well. tried my best here. What shall we pick? I mean, this one looks quite nice. Yeah, in the end, it all comes down to composition and so on. And of course, you're beholden to the quality of the props that are in a game and the quality of the textures. And I mean, Cyberpunk has it down quite a lot, but since Control is much more confined to a certain space, and they can go overboard in terms of the quality of the individual assets. And I'm gonna look at this. This looks so nice. It looks like one of the early IBM computer screens with those knobs for brightness and contrast. Very nice. And since it's ray tracing, look at this. She's being reflected there in the monitors. This is wonderful. Okay, so let's pick. You know what? Let's pick this one here. This has, okay, now I need to find it again. Where was it? I think it was this one here. Yeah, let's try and see what I can bring out of this one. Okay, again, photo mode. I said engage photo mode. There we are. And again, since I took this one with Cyberpunk, I couldn't, or let's put it differently, with Cyberpunk I had to turn down the exposure to get the most information retained in the image, what is bright, what is dark, and so on. Control has a different rendering mechanism, algorithm probably is what you call it. And without lookup tables, the image is very low in contrast, which is good because if you this also allows you that when you turn up the contrast, you really can get something that is super bright and super saturated and so on. So in my opinion, I like it when internally the engine renders at a logarithmic scale, at a linear scale, and then I can apply the gamma and so on myself. But yeah, this is just super detailed, super nerdy colorist talk there. Okay, so again, let's just see what we can find here with the color. And I like it when it's a bit blue and also a bit yellow. So I turn up the vibrance and then see where I can push things. So I'm just making a basic color, white balance essentially. And yeah, let's bring up the texture. This was too much. Bring up the clarity. Again, don't overdo it. I'm probably using it way too much for what it's worth, and it looks probably a bit too too gimmicky. Okay, right. The color mixer there. And again, I'm here in the hue part, and this is again, I'm just trying really to limit myself to a certain subset of colors. For example, the yellows there, or the greens there on the wall, I want them more towards blue perhaps. But again, since this color mixer gets applied before my basic white balance, it's really hard to get where you want. I did some editing, some edits of screenshots that I took in Control, in the game Control to be precise, and I didn't edit them with Photoshop because I felt too limited. Because I can feel it right now that I know where I want to go, but I can't go there. And I said, this is bad when you have a preconception where you want to go, but yeah, never mind. So yeah, I don't like this anymore. Essentially, yeah. I mean, right now it looks like some cheap Instagram filter, right? And they are all cheap because I don't recall that I paid for any of them. So yeah, this is just very quickly a pretty bad color grading on this one. Because what I did was, this was one of those instances where I imported the screenshots into Resolve, my color grading software of choice, and did there the editing. And I got there Resolve renders. And yeah, this is how the shots looked rendered from the Resolve. Let me bring it up and make it big. And yeah, this is, I feel, looks a bit yeah, you see, this is how I interpreted that shot in Resolve. So yeah, it's for some reason I feel that the warm touch looks much better on this one than the blue one that I tried. But my God, it looks so realistic. It looks so realistic. I think this one is one of my favorite shots that I took. Yeah, again, there is just so much fun to be had with the photo mode, at least to me, in the different games. To some people, which I can completely understand it's something which they are completely indifferent about it, so it's okay if it's there, but yeah, is not really missing if something's lacking. To me, I'm a bit torn whether I like a photo mode or not. In one thing, as you can see, I like it to death. On the other thing, most of the time it feels like it's not going too far. It doesn't let me do all the adjustments that I want to make, that I have on an actual camera. And this is, yeah, again, as you've seen it with Cyberpunk before, provided you were watching the stream or provided you were receiving the stream, because I was having so many problems. I forgot my train of thought. Right, remember it. With Cyberpunk, it's still so clunky that when you disable your player character, it still gets the collision boxes of your player character, and you still can, with the camera, you can't go through the player character. So this is something that where I think, yeah, it could be so much better, but this is all that we got. And I mean, it's okay, but sometimes it feels like you're just adjusting the camera for way too long. And yeah, this is another downside of the photo mode, especially with me. I spend way too much time with it. I really want to do just this one mission, and then I spend 2 hours in one location because I know I won't be able to come back, and the game doesn't let me save in this apparently super scripted important story mission, but I just go around and take pictures of everything. So yeah, but I think this is just my problem. Trains, says Frank. Oh, that's not what you were talking about. But yeah, again, thank you, Frank, for trying to jog my memory. Trains. Yeah, this was not what I was talking about. But then again, I'm a trained colorist. Maybe this is what I was talking about. Yeah, never mind. I'm rambling again. So yeah, I think if there aren't any more questions, again, I thank you so much for dropping by for this little horrible accident of a stream. I've learned my lesson. Try not to stream Cyberpunk. Probably also not while encoding a video in the background. Maybe this also explains it. But yeah, maybe it was interesting to you. Maybe you've learned one thing or the other, which is always nice when I can pass on my knowledge. My God, my tummy is rumbling. Maybe I should eat more than just my coffee. But oh God, coffee.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
It's just so good. Incanimula says, it was interesting for sure. Thank you so much. And Frank says, I've seen people stream Cyberpunk. I suspect it's possible. They were probably streaming from a PlayStation 3 or even 2 or something. So they had a lot of CPU power in their streaming machine left to do the encoding. Yeah, probably. You know what? I think I got two possible explanations why it was so bad in the stream. Explanation number one is probably because I was using OBS and not the game capture but the screen capture until I changed it, and then of course I was capturing the camera and so on and so forth. So maybe that. Another explanation could be that I was using this glass brick app. Again, like I said, it is this one that allows me to zoom in. The problem with this is essentially it's just rendering my entire desktop onto a direct draw surface that it then scales up and down. But when you already have a Cyberpunk running, a high-end 3D game, and then do a complete or have some buffer open on the GPU, accessible to the GPU, with the entire resolution that I have, and it's like 3,000 or 5,000 pixels across and yeah, HD height. Maybe this could be the problem. So I should have deactivated this, or maybe that I'm running FFmpeg and compressing some of my Cyberpunk gameplay videos. It's mostly me running around toggling photo mode on and off. But maybe not, because I still was running quite good in terms of RAM. So maybe it's one of those things. Maybe I should have a dedicated computer that is just used for streaming. Who knows? We will never find out, because I probably will never try ever again to stream Cyberpunk. But again, it was so nice of you. Thank you that you still stuck around until I had things sorted out. And Frank's Rad Charlie says, always a pleasure to see your workflow and unicorns. Yes, I'm always happy to share my workflow. Again, the more I always think this was when I was a student back in college. I always was so curious about how other people were doing the same things that I was trying to do. And to me, it felt most of the times I have no idea what I'm doing. It works for now, barely, but my God, the pros really do things completely differently. And then I saw how some pros were doing things like there was this one lady who streamed drawing comics, right? Artwork. And she was, I mean, it was gorgeous what she was drawing with the same drawing tablet that I have. But then she tried to draw a certain curve and used it took her like 16 attempts to draw the perfect curve. And I always assumed that people, people who know how to draw, just draw, maybe do a pencil sketch and then draw over it and it's done. But not her. And I realized that, my God, even the pros sometimes take 15 attempts to get it right. And with me, it just, the first attempt doesn't work. And I thought, yeah, oh my God, it's not working for me, right? So I think this is also why I share my process, so you see all the mistakes I made and all the times I second guess myself and everything. So I hope maybe that you become, should you suffer from this feeling of doubt towards your own skills, it's okay. In the end, everybody's just faking it in a sense, right? If it looks good, it is good. And with that, I think I can call it a night. And Frank has another sip of water. Yeah, right. We mentioned the U, that the word that starts with U and ended with unicorn. Yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for watching the stream, for me struggling with streaming the game, but also that you could, that I could test drive my Stream Deck and switch scenes between them by just hitting buttons, which is nice. And there are, look at this, there are even 2 or 3 buttons that I haven't used so far, which I already prepared little things for. But we will see, maybe next time. I don't want to spoil everything that I have prepared. Just when there is an occasion, maybe I will use them. When not, then probably not. Yeah, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing. Bye, Cursibu. Thank you for dropping by, and thank you, Frank, also for dropping by. And Rather Charlie says, perfect, and great to know that this Stream Deck is working. Yes, it is, and it is so much fun. So, again, I don't know how to end stream, so I just say thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for dropping by and being active in the chat. And I hope you have a great week. My God, it's Christmas, so I hope you get some holidays despite the whole Corona situation. I know that we will be pretty much hunkering down and seeing how we pass the holidays. Either way, it will be something different this year. But maybe next year we will all be able to catch up with our loved ones. And I'm looking very much forward to that. Well, see you probably next Sunday. I'm not quite sure if I'll be streaming then, but I will probably am, because like I said, I'm staying at home. Got a lot of time on my hands. And with that, fill out and have a great evening. Bye. Yeah, that's the one.